Welcome to Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Tonight, we're going to talk about why I feel Bitcoin's next destination is the moon. Not financial advice, but let's get started. This is weekly Bitcoin, and you can see that Bitcoin has been stuck in this descending, broadening wedge pattern for quite some time, going all the way back to around March. And this is the Gunnar EMA bull market support band that kind of shrank down and had a bearish cross briefly in early September. That resolved quickly to a bullish cross within a few weeks. And this is not uncommon for Bitcoin to do this at this stage in the cycle. Since then, Bitcoin has actually been holding the new bull market support band, which has been widening slowly. So that is a huge point for the bulls. But I want to take a look at some things in this video. We're going to review a few metrics that I've talked about in past Bitcoin videos and compare them to where they are now. And then we're also going to look at some new ways to look at Bitcoin to kind of understand why I feel like up is the most likely path. And at a parabolic run by Bitcoin that could begin, I mean, I don't know exactly when, but I think around the elections is probably a good guess, with some upward movement and challenging of the previous all-time high happening possibly within the next few weeks. So we need to kind of understand, where I'm coming from with this, because when I make projections like this, it's based entirely off of my interpretation of the data and not my opinion on where I want Bitcoin to go. So let's go ahead and look at a few other indicators to see why Bitcoin looks so bullish. So you're seeing some early signs of Bitcoin's bullish reversal with the 20-week whole moving average kind of turning up here and holding as support. You're seeing Bitcoin fight to try to get above the 50-week and an incoming potential golden cross of the 20 with the 50. The 100 is hanging out at around 71K, and the 200 is hanging out around 56K. Now remember, we had the death cross of the 50 and 100 back on August 19th, and I've done videos on this, but so I'm not going to like go through all of it. But what I will remind you is that when there is a death cross of these two whole moving averages, what I've noticed is that every time Bitcoin has a pump to try to challenge the 100-week HMA. Now, it doesn't always make it that high because sometimes there's a lot of bearish momentum. But this descending broadening wedge really doesn't look that bearish. I mean, it's actually a bull flag, technically speaking. So I think getting to this 100-week whole moving average will very likely be Bitcoin's next stop on its journey upwards. And I actually think it's going to get above the 100-week, but I do think it could stop there. If we look at the parabolic SAR, you'll see that to reverse this downtrend at the moment, we just need to get above about 66.8K. And I think there's a very likely chance we'll do that in the coming weeks. And I think once we get through there, I think our next point of contention will be around the previous all-time high, and that's about the 100-week HMA. And so I think there's a very high chance that Bitcoin overcomes this 100-week HMA, and then you start to see this moving average start to, settle down a little bit while the 50 starts to turn up. And you can almost imagine by perhaps the end of the year or close to it, November to December, all these moving averages can be in the process of stacking, kind of like they were here, right? Back in early 2024, where you have the 20 above the 50, above the 100, above the 200. That's what you want to see in a parabolic uptrend. So we could see the process of that starting to begin sometime this quarter, and I think that's actually very likely to happen. So that's just something to kind of mention to you. I originally had a theory that Bitcoin could make it. It was called the dump before the pump, and I'll be honest with you, it wasn't really a very good theory. That I thought Bitcoin could potentially make it down to the 42 to 46K region. But before it had a pump. I mean, I've been bullish this entire time on Bitcoin in quarter four. You can go back, look at my videos, and you'll see it was always bullish. But I wasn't sure if there was going to be like a final shakeout. And I actually think now that this was the final shakeout right here, where we dropped to just around 40, just about 48K. We'll call it, 49K. Okay. And you might be thinking, well, that's not much of a drop. And it really isn't. No, but look at where the 200 week is and how we've been respecting it. So it's actually kind of hard to imagine Bitcoin having a violent drop at this point, and the indicators are certainly not pointing in that direction. Now, let me be clear on two things. Number one, I'm not saying that a drop won't happen. A drop could happen. It still could happen. I'm just saying odds are we don't get much of a drop. If we did have one at this point, I honestly don't think we'd go below 55K on a drop. Okay, maybe we could wick a little bit below it, but honestly, right now, I'm not even sure how much further Bitcoin will drop. in the coming weeks because it's starting to look really, really bullish. So if you look at the ADX and DI, what you'll notice is a pattern of lower highs on the bearish momentum. And I'm definitely taking note of that. At the same time, you're seeing that the trend strength is actually drawn down and kind of gone flat at very low levels. And when you see something like this, you typically expect some kind of reversal. And that reversal can be bearish or bullish as the ADX starts to turn back up. And that's where you start to get more volatility entering into the picture. And with the lower highs on the red DI, I have to think that we'll get a bullish cross fairly soon. And that could actually mark the beginning of an upward consolidation towards a mania breakout. Like I said, if I had to guess, I'd say sometime in November would be sort of my base case for that. So that's kind of what you're seeing on the ADX and DI is telling the story of, you know what, I think this downtrend is pretty much done. We don't really have much gas left in the tank for that. And it's time for a trend reversal to start materializing. I don't think it will be a violent trend reversal at first. Like I said, I do think we will challenge the old all-time high around the 100-week HMA, and Bitcoin might be a little choppy in that area. But then I think as we approach November and the elections, post-elections, I think we're going to see trend strength really start to pick up in a bullish way. Something else I just want to point out to you, if you look at Bitcoin's risk metric, this is the PAN XBT risk metric, which I love. We're currently at a risk level of 39.7. So just for reference, 40 risk is at about 64K, 50 risk is at 76K. So honestly, like taking out the previous all-time high is really not that exciting. Right now, 100 risk, this would be where I would be like, okay, get out of the market. Was about 175K. So it's actually moved up by about $5,000 in the past month or two. And I imagine it will continue moving up as the year comes to a close. So Bitcoin really hasn't done anything that exciting all year. And if you think this move was exciting, it's really not. The move to 73.5K is really not any more exciting than the 2019 bounce when you look back at it. It looks like just consolidation that's sort of necessary for Bitcoin to make its next move. So where will Bitcoin go? I mean, that's a really good question. Where will Bitcoin top? Will it make it to this top region up here? As it's done, first model is back tested. It almost made it in November of 2021. It nearly made it up there, earlier than that in April. So it's hard to say, like I think the danger zone really starts at around 85 risk or 80 risk. So 130K, I think, is where you might want to start pulling out some of the topping indicators and seeing kind of what's going on there. But I think we should be prepared for a breakout. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen this week or even necessarily next week, but I think it's coming, and it's coming, I think, within a month. I think we're going to see the parabolic breakout begin, and I'm talking the true bull market parabolic breakout that we're used to seeing. I think it's coming. So yeah, our risk right now is still very low. It's been low all year. I mean, even back here in April, the risk wasn't even that high at that time, and that's because of the logarithmic regression of Bitcoin. That as time goes on, the tricks bubble, which consists of a bunch of shorter term simple moving averages, has actually turned up recently. You can see the moving averages are starting to turn up. They've gotten above the zero line. There's a clear double bottom pattern that played out from pretty much throughout quarter 3. So I think the odds are, this might get off to a little bit of a slow start, might even come down a little bit again. But I'm seeing the signs, folks, that this is turning around and heading bullish again. This is a new indicator that I picked up. It's actually not new, but it's an indicator I just picked up recently called the Swiss Army knife indicator. And you can see that we put in an inverse head and shoulders on this indicator. And this contains a lot of different kinds of data. And so that's suggesting you can see how we had the downtrend, the head and shoulders over here, a little bit similar to the RCMO, reverse Chandey momentum oscillator. I think similar to that in some ways. And you can kind of see that, we appear to be kind of changing trend, right? This looks like it's gearing up for another upwards move toward the end of the year. Okay, like I said, I don't usually look at simple moving averages, but I think it's foolish to not look at them at all. This is Bitcoin dominance to try to get an idea of what might happen to the market as a whole. We should look at Bitcoin dominance and notice how Bitcoin dominance is stacked above all of its moving averages, all of its SMAs for the first time ever. You have the 20 above the 50, above the 100, above the 200. That's bullish. Okay. Now, How much more gas in the tank does dominance have? That's a great question. I mean, I think if you kind of just go back to what Bitcoin has historically done, we get kind of what's known as a Bitcoin only rally. Now, I don't think that we're going to have a Bitcoin only rally. There's other stuff rallying more so than it has before because Bitcoin dominance is generally just at lower levels. There's more stuff in the market, more stuff moving, but nothing is really moving quite like Bitcoin dominance is, right? Bitcoin dominance continues to remain probably the most bullish chart in crypto. And so what I'm thinking is that Bitcoin dominance is probably going to top sometime this quarter. And I can't tell you exactly when that's going to happen, but I think 60% is a reasonable topping zone based on previous areas of horizontal support, and now probably flip to resistance. And I think the highest I could absolutely see Bitcoin dominance going in a parabolic move would be about 63%, but I don't think so. I think 60% is probably going to be a sufficient topping zone, and that could happen in November. It could happen sooner than that. I don't really know exactly when. This does look bullish, though. Now, what doesn't look bullish about Bitcoin dominance and has me thinking the end is near is its Gaussian channel. We have flipped concave down and we're widening. Okay. That is generally a bearish warning, an omen. You can see that this happened in the past. Of course, Bitcoin dominance collapsed. I mean, the whole trend of dominance was just different in the past. We can't accept that, we can't expect the past to play out exactly, the present to play out exactly like the past. But, Bitcoin dominance doesn't look super impressive when you kind of consider how its movement has gone. And you know, having it at these lower levels is allowing you to play around in other parts of the market and still make money. I think just having a Bitcoin only portfolio, unless that's what you really want to do, is probably not going to make you the most money. Bitcoin will what, like maybe a 3x uh, from here. And I don't think we're going to see a 4x, but let's just say 3 to 4x, So I think most of the gains from Bitcoin have kind of already been made. Unless you're just piling millions of dollars into it already, then what a 3 to 4x could be pretty substantial. But um, and I think people are seeing that. And so I have a hard time seeing dominance get above 60. I could see it hitting 60 if Bitcoin really starts to go parabolic, which I think it's going to do in November. And I think Bitcoin dominance could top out sometime in quarter four. So that's all I can really say. It could happen in November, December. Not really sure. If we look at the whole moving averages on Bitcoin dominance, they also look bullish. These are more current moving averages. Let me turn on the 20 and the 200. You might see some cracks forming earlier with a whole moving average than you would with a simple moving average. So if we kind of zoom in, we can kind of see. Oops, I'm going to be drawing things. If we zoom in, let's see what's going on. So the moving averages are also stacked from least to greatest, but notice Bitcoin is facing some resistance at its 20-week. Now, that's not unusual. Bitcoin's faced resistance there in the past, and there's a chance it gets back above it again, and there's a chance it doesn't too, right? We could get a death cross of the 20 with the 50, and that could be a sign of some weakness. Um, Hard to say though. Like we've had those death crosses before. It didn't really mean much, but I think you can see the biggest clue to weakness is the Gaussian channel, right? It's widening. It's concave down. This is generally not bullish for long. Okay, you're expecting some kind of collapse into the channel, and so I think Bitcoin dominance is going to collapse sometime in quarter four, and I think it's going to look really bad in quarter one of 2025, which is good for those of you who are altcoin and Ethereum holders. But as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think 2024 will be remembered as a Bitcoin year. I think even in late December, you'll look back. And while you may have made some nice gains on altcoins, overall, I wouldn't call it an altcoin year. I think that's 2025. Where might Bitcoin go? Where might the next stop be? I mean, this is an impossible question to answer, but what I did is I fit Bitcoin to 100 weeks of data and ran a linear regression analysis on it with two standard deviations away from the mean line in the middle. So this would be -2 +2. And this is actually a pretty strong trend, as you can see. Bitcoin has respected this linear regression channel relatively well. Now, all these channels break eventually, and this channel goes back to the bear market. So I think it's a good channel. The lowest I could see Bitcoin possibly going, let's just say it has one more week of rollover, the next week or the week after, would be about 58K. Now, I'm not saying it can't go below 58K. It certainly could wick below, but I think 58K is a reasonable turning point if Bitcoin continues the downtrend. Um, but I think we're near the end of that. Okay, and I'm not going to even focus much on this downtrend. I think from that point onward, a reasonable upside target to be looking at for a potential reversal. And it's hard to say exactly when this would happen. As you see, Bitcoin can ride the median line of this. We could see it go above it. But I think around 133K, 130K. It's kind of been my number. That is sort of the line of like, okay, maybe we should be paying attention now. We should always be paying attention, but for a potential reversal. And it doesn't mean the bull market's over, but it does, if we get up to 130K around December or January, we are at the top of this channel. The last time we were at the top of this channel, we fell down. So we do want to pay attention if we get up to 130K. And it's weird because that's not even maximum risk, right? And this channel might not hold. Okay, so like, it's a channel, it's one model of many, and there's no guarantee that it holds up, but it's something to kind of keep in mind as we navigate to the end of the year. I haven't done a Fibonacci analysis on Bitcoin in a while, so I figured I'd pull the fibs out. Bitcoin has been toying around with the 886 and the 1 fib, and it even got below, right? It started heading towards the 786 fib, and in fact, what I'm calling the low, I'm calling this a low. I think 48, 49, 48K, whatever this was, I think will hold as the low for the macro low. It actually corresponds to this high from January of 2024. We held it. I don't think we're coming back down to it anytime soon. I think the next thing we're going to do, I think there's already a change in trend that's taking place, is we're going to, at most test the 886 one more time. But I think we're going to be testing the 1 fib for the first time since the summer. And I think this may be the time that we start to get above it and get into price discovery. Once you get into price discovery, it can be a very fast process and you can go parabolic very, very quickly. And if we were to pull down and kind of see what some upside targets are at the moment, okay, I don't think we're going to make it to these necessarily. So the 1.618 is at 174K. That is one risk if you think back to the Pan XBT risk model. So I think if we get up this high, like if we're up at 175K by the end of the year or even the beginning of 2025, I am going to think that that's the end of the cycle, the end of the bull market, and we're probably rolling over into a bear market. I don't think Bitcoin can go higher than that in any kind of sustained way. But if we get to like 130K, which is sort of like be like maybe a 1.3 fib or something, I don't know exactly what the fib level would be here. I do think we could roll over still and have another leg of the bull market later on in the year. So I would not. It would be a tricky thing around 130, 140K to, because there's no guarantee that we make it to the 1.618. But I would be like probably less confident about us rolling over into a bear market than if we're hitting close to the 1.618. Okay. I don't think we get above that at all anytime soon. If the bull market extends like, further into 2025, I could see Bitcoin getting above the 1.618 into the 200s. That could potentially happen. Okay. So those are sort of my thoughts about, okay, interestingly enough, when I pull up logarithmic fibs, the story is not really that different. Of course, these values are different. Bitcoin has really been straddling the 618, and the 618 is currently coming in. Let me pull the crosshairs out for this just to see. The 618 is coming in around 60K, and Bitcoin has shown some strength there. The 7639 fib is at 92.3K, so that might actually be a significant level. We may find ourselves straddling that for a little while. The 8541 is at 122, and this is the one I'm actually looking out for as a potential cycle top. Like I said, the 130 to 140K level to me is a potential topping area. I'm not convinced it's a top because I know Bitcoin can go higher, but I'm going to get a little bit cautious around that area and see what happens next. The absolute top line, which we have reached in previous cycles, and we could reach again this cycle, is at 186,000. I don't so if we do blast, up to the 100 into this region, notice that that's where everything stopped last time, and we go to back to the past, we have gotten above this. So, um, really tricky in this region once you're above the 8541 top line. So expect me to show this a little bit more probably as we head into the bull cycle, um, because I think these fib levels become a lot more significant. I love the logarithmic fibs, because they're more useful to me than the linear fibs in some ways. So I'm very bullish on quarter four still, despite what's happened in the past week. I mean, look at Bitcoin has faced all kinds of social, political turmoil. Without getting into details, there's been disruptions to the supply chain. There have been geopolitical tensions, and Bitcoin is still held up above 60K. So what does that tell you? It tells you Bitcoin is unbreakable right now, barring some black swan, and you can't plan for those. They just happen. So, and black swans are rare events. That's why they're called black swans. We just had one 4 years ago. That doesn't mean that we can't have another one, but it's not something you really want to spend your time trying to like go hunting for. So I remain very bullish on Bitcoin, and I think that it is likely to reach around 130,000 potentially by the end of the year or early Q1 2025. I absolutely believe we're going to take out the all-time high this quarter. There's almost nothing that can convince me otherwise at this point. Um, Not to say that you shouldn't be open-minded to the bearish thesis. You're just not going to find it here at Crypto Simulation Theory. We are bearish sometimes. I was bearish back in March and April, actually turned bearish even in February. So I'm not like a permabull. It's just right now, to me, is not the time to be bearish. There's nothing in the chart to really suggest that I should be. So I'm bullish, and I am almost fully deployed in the market. I'm pretty close to being fully deployed, and yeah, we'll see what happens. So hey, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to give me a like and a follow, subscribe. It really helps if you share my content. um, all that stuff helps the algorithm to get my content out, to more people, right? So, and another thing too, we've had a bunch of people joining from YouTube recently, and I encourage you to continue joining. But I have a Telegram group called the Snake Pit. If you made it this far in the video, you might as well sign up for it, because that means you like my stuff, right? In fact, it's not just my stuff there. See, the thing about this, sorry, it's not called the Snake Pit. It was called the Snake Pit. It's actually Crypto Simulation Theory Telegram. The thing about the Telegram group that makes it so special is that we don't believe that anybody is a guru, that any one of us, including myself, has the best view of the market. We work as a team together to analyze the market, to analyze altcoins. And we have some like fresh altcoins that come out, and we're on top of that. Speaking of altcoins, I did say in my last video that my next video was going to be about altcoin accumulation strategies. I do still intend to make that video, but when I saw what was going on with Bitcoin this weekend, I had to make Bitcoin the priority. So I apologize to those of you who are waiting for that video. I will get that video out, but this took precedent, of course. Bitcoin's, is always number one above everything else. We have to give it the respect it deserves. So that'll be about it for today. Again, nothing here was financial advice. Yeah, if you like the content, subscribe and join my Telegram group. We'd love to have you there. I also have a Twitter. I never talk about it on this YouTube channel, but I do post content on my Twitter as well. So be sure to click on the links in the video description. All of that is down there if you want to see me elsewhere, because I'm more active on Telegram and Twitter than I am on YouTube at the moment. It takes longer to make these videos than it does for me to tweet things out. So I want to make sure that you can get the latest and greatest content from me. All right. See you next time in the